Okay. So yes, this announcement that for Sabian is really cool, because it's going to grow. We are going to grow more than ever. And we just have 4-5 months, no more. Just for us is a lot. And we are really happy how fast we were growing. And yes, for the new ones that are here, I wanted to say that we have weekly meetings every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. That is no 7 p.m., no 8 p.m. It's 7:30 p.m. because we are special ones. And the same time is the 10:30 p.m. for East time, right? And we have also the meeting place for the new ones, yeah. Meeting place, I wanted to put it here. You are able to see all the speakers or the topics around the month. We are organizing for next month some interesting meetings that is not posted yet, but you can see when it's in 2 days maybe is posted. But the idea is to present the design challenge for different groups in August that we are doing. We have 8 groups, maybe less, maybe 8, and we have to organize in August the schedule for presenting those projects. How the people started in IterateUX, working together, learning from others, working collaboratively, and that is really good for everyone. Yeah, and also I wanted to invite the people that is not in Discord. Right now we have a Discord channel that where we share a lot of resources. We have a good connection with others that is really warm people, that is really funny also in the same way. So you can join there. And yeah, I think if anyone has any question for the design challenge that we started this month, let us know to Adam and I. We wanted to be sure that everything is going well, and anyone has a problem, or we can solve that problem as soon as possible. And yeah, for announcements, this is everything. And for today's meeting, we have Sarah as a speaker. She will show a great topic about learning for failure from her experience. And thank you, Sarah, for taking your time to share with us. And I hope everyone can have tons of questions for her, and yeah, to enjoy this, right? So Sarah, when you want to introduce yourself, you can start whenever you want.
Awesome. Would you be able to make me the host so I could do breakout rooms?
I put you on the host.
Am I the host?
You can share your screen.
Can I do breakout rooms? Because I know that was one part of.
Oh, let me put.
We can always do large group discussions if that's easier.
Awesome. This is it. You are the host now.
Okay.
I think we went and enabled breakout rooms at one point, didn't we?
I bet so. I don't know.
Like we were looking at the settings for that, so we did. I think we turned that on, but.
Turned it on or turned it off?
Turned it on.
Do
you see it?
I don't see the button to do breakout rooms. We can also just discuss as a large group if that's easier. Yeah, I'm not seeing the button to do breakout rooms. I mean, I guess there's this, yeah, we're a small enough group that it won't be intimidating. Oh, got another participant. To, I guess, do a large group. Oh, what a cute dog.
And
Hi,
if just keep your eye out for people joining late, maybe, and then if you can put your video on, like it will help us get to know you better and remember your face. If you can't, we understand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to share with you guys today. Thank you all for coming out here. I guess coming to the Zoom meeting. I know it's probably a really long walk for a lot of people. But my name is Sarah, and I currently live in Seattle. Do we have anyone else from Seattle here? Darn. There's a lot of, oh, yay! Beatrix, good to meet you. Yeah, I think you messaged me on LinkedIn. So great to have more Seattleites, because we do have a lot of Portland and a lot of Vancouver, but somehow Washington just got skipped over. But I will be, yes, as Leticia mentioned, I will be presenting on learning from failure. And clearly, learning from failure is something that we all have to do on a daily basis. Obviously, for myself and a lot of other people, this is especially a time with a lot of rejections from jobs we're applying for. And even if we aren't applying for jobs, we also probably have a lot of projects that didn't go according to plan. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can go ahead and start the presentation.
And if you're, hey Sarah, too, also like,
Yep.
why don't you go right now and just mute? You can go mute.
Yeah, that's smart. Mute.
Go mute everyone, and then just so that we can start fresh with people muted.
No problems.
All right, we are going to mute everyone. Great. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see this all right? You can just give me a thumbs up. Great. All right. So as I mentioned, I will be talking about learning from failure. So this was supposed to be a breakout room discussion. We can just do a large group discussion. So I guess I just have a couple questions for us as we're starting out. So how would you define failure is the first question. And the second time, I'd love to hear about a time when you quote unquote failed on either a design project. You can also talk about a job interview. And that way we can, share experiences with each other. So I'm going to open it up for discussion. You can just chime in.
Okay, so for me, failure is opportunities to grow for me. I don't know exactly the meaning of failure, but I think for me, it's the opportunity to grow. And tell me about a time you failed on a design project. Oh, yeah, maybe a lot of time failing. A lot of time failing because, for example, maybe when you are in a group, when you are creating a project and you have to communicate with developers and in a client, the client never know about the technical skills. They don't have any technical skills, and developer also doesn't know about my project or how can I design, right? And maybe just the bad connection is a failure. So
Definitely.
yeah, that is mine. I don't know if anyone has other.
Remember, you have to unmute yourself in order to talk.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, anyone who wants to?
I mean, yeah, I guess I can go. There's a quick one, I guess. I mean, I've been on some projects, that have failed, and you kind of feel bummed out that they didn't make it. But kind of like looking back on projects that have failed, like whether it be startups or whatever, I feel like even though it's kind of like technically a failure because the product didn't make it, I feel like you learn so much during the process that you wouldn't have learned if you were never on the project in the first place. So it just ends up, I think sometimes failure is definitely a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and here you have also what specifically about it is a failure to you thought going just one little failure out of scope, or there is for Sabian.
Oh, I was just clarifying Jose's suggestion of failure being the scope, but he meant not defining a scope. And I'm like, yes, that's definitely a problem. Because when you don't define the scope properly, you let's say get distracted by thousands of little things that accumulate every day. Like, oh, let's try this, and then oh, let's try this, and then by the end of 2 weeks, oh, I started 50 different things. Whoops. And you have to deal with that afterwards. I would consider that a time management failure.
Scope creep. Definitely.
Not define the scope. Yeah,
Scope
not
is
defining.
after you've defined the scope, and then you forget about the scope.
Yeah, sometimes also like when you have a client that assume that is the scope is this and the process is one exactly, that you don't know what this guy is thinking, and you offer 3 different designs and they just, oh, I don't like that, I don't want to order, just try to make it this monster and this other monster in one monster, So, oh my gosh, this is a normal situation in my life. I bet yours also in the same.
Yeah, that could be very frustrating for sure.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, can we change the color?
Oh yeah, it's like, okay, come on. Why the color? Why you pick? Today I have a meeting to create like an application for a client that actually he has designed 3 different things for one thing, but they don't have the entire user experience process done. Actually, they don't know about the user, what is user experience process, what actually is. So it's difficult. It's difficult, but again, it's like try to make your best for understand the other person. That I think is the most difficult thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Adam, you're muted.
Who is muted?
I think, Adam, were you saying something?
Yeah, he's talking, but we can't hear him.
Oh yeah, I bet it's his headphones. I don't know. Maybe yes.
Maybe I can I don't think he's muted.
Another situation indeed. He's just moving his.
Yeah, maybe it looks like his sound isn't working. You can always drop it in the chat as well.
Yeah, Erin, do you have any failure? You can.
There we go. Is my audio working?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm thinking back to previous work environment that wasn't a UX design role. It was more of a project management role. And the work environment itself defined failure in a way that very much encouraged everyone to feel like they needed to be to never make a mistake or not experiment, that from the very, like every output should be exactly what is needed at all times. And so it was so interesting how much that tended to stifle people's creativity and even like collaboration and just ability to the level of stress in the environment was really high. So I love the design thinking methodologies and like just the philosophy of UX with the fact that it's expected that, you know, what kind of it comes out at the beginning of a process is not perfect. And the idea of iteration is something that appeals very much to me.
Sounds like a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And I think Jose has something to say because he is speaking. I don't know if you can please, Jose. Carmanola. There you go.
Yes. No, I agree with Erin. It feels like if you're in an environment that don't allow mistakes, it's destined to failure. You know, it's you have to be willing to make mistakes and try new things, because that what is design all about. You know, iterate and do it all over again.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is the nice thing about design, is that in theory, at least, we have the opportunity to do endless iteration. Obviously, we have things like budget constraints, we have difficult clients, other things that can often restrict our ability to keep trying over and over again. But it is really wonderful. I mean, this is part of why I used to be in scientific research, and this is part of why I switched out of that, because there's very little room for failure and very little room for, as Erin, as you mentioned, for experimentation. And I love that design gives us an opportunity to do that. However, we do, even though we don't have this, we have this culture of iteration in design, there are still frustrations, and there are, you know, jobs we don't get, there's products that don't ship, there are, you know, people that don't like your work, which in a very real way feel like failure. And so I'm going to share with you guys one of those experiences, since these are things we face all the time as designers. And I'm going to also share a little bit about what I learned and why I choose not to view it as a failure, because there's a lot that I got out of it. And hopefully there's a lot of knowledge you can take away for your own projects as well.
Adam has a problem. Can you can you let him in again? Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's because I'm full screen. Uh-oh.
I know. So sorry about that.
No, it's all right. Technology is hard.
Technology.
Oh. Thanks for pointing that out. I did not even see that. Adam, are you good now?
I don't know.
Is he in there?
I'm back.
Oh,
there you go.
Yes, your sound is good as
The
well.
computer crashed.
Perfect.
Windows?
Sorry?
Oh, probably Windows.
No, it's a Mac.
Oh, really?
Really?
Apple let you down.
There's been some issues with Zoom and Slack video lately on both my personal and work machines.
Zoom has a lot of iteration they need to do as well. It's gotten better for sure, but security things have gotten better. Anyway. Oh, sorry?
Oh, never mind. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So anyway, the project I'm going to be sharing with you guys is called MutualAid.world. This is a project I worked on in the kind of the start of the pandemic through like April, May, beginning of June. And this was a project that was completely open source, is a pro bono team. So people gathered from all over the world working on this project to connect people in the community who are vulnerable to COVID with people like organizations that could help meet their needs, such as delivering food boxes to their house. Very cool project with great intentions to help the community. And I was not familiar with the term mutual aid before, so I'm just going to play the first 3 minutes of this video. Just a quick introduction to what the project was about and kind of what the idea and the philosophy behind mutual aid is. Oh, now I have to bring my shared window to the front. Whoops. Oh, I hate this. Sorry guys. New share. Here we go. Are you guys seeing the YouTube? Good? Okay. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
My name's Simon, coming to you from my garage during quarantine home office here in Gun Barrel, Colorado, with an invitation to help co-create a powerful, locally based mutual aid movement. This movement has no center, it has many leaders, and it's already emerging. I'm reaching out today as a node in that network, inviting you to join one little corner of it. Our governments and institutions are struggling to respond to the needs of the moment. More reactive than proactive, more damage controlled than visionary. But the people are here, able, and already demonstrating our tremendous ability to organize and care for each other. Across the country, local communities are organizing to provide mutual aid and care. And as we do this, local organizers are facing similar challenges around technology. They're each building their own solutions to identify and track needs, and then match folks who have the capacity and reliability to show up to support those needs. Right now, there are dozens and dozens of individual projects using things like spreadsheets, online surveys, Slack, and Zoom calls to accomplish the coordination required to care for our community. We're seeing inspiring and ingenious solutions being developed. At the same time, most of them are limited by the capacity of the technology they're using, which wasn't built for the purposes they're trying to use it for. And when an innovation is being made in one community, it's not easy to share that and implement it in another community. Corona Donors is a project to help local organizers do their work by providing ready-made, constantly evolving software to meet the needs of local mutual aid projects. Over the past few years, a team of developers has already created an app fit for this situation. It enables people to voice their needs for all kinds of support publicly, and for others to see and fill those requests. Right now, the app has the capacity to connect people, map requests geographically, preserve the data privacy of participants, and allows participants to rate each other's trustworthiness and skillfulness in responding to specific asks. We can also connect the app to Facebook so people can share requests there. For example, one person could make a request for a food delivery, another person could see and fill the request, and then they could communicate to the whole network that they're each are who they say they are, and we're able to make the connection happen safely. Over time, this will allow us to build a network of trust and validation while simultaneously identifying which volunteers in our network can be trusted to perform specific tasks such as childcare, peer-to-peer medical support, or mental health support. But this is more than just an opportunity to identify and meet needs. We've open sourced the code to create the opportunity for a decentralized collaboration between software developers and local organizers. This is an opportunity for us to come together to build a constantly evolving system to take care of each other.
Awesome. I'm just gonna, oops. There we go. So as you can see, this project had really great ideas about bringing the community together. And Simon, this gentleman in the video, did a really good job of defining the problem that a lot of organizers are facing. They've been suddenly inundated with all of these new requests from people who are vulnerable to COVID and need food or other services delivered to their home. But the organizers, in this case, do not have the means, or they're not using software that's created for that purpose. So they might have their payment information in one place, they might have their project information in another place, and their volunteer information in another place. So our idea behind this project was to create a central hub for all of those ideas, all of those pieces of the puzzle. And that way the organizers could keep all their information closely in one place and could be more efficient, for instance, with sending, if there's a couple, we call them missions, so like different requests from people in the community that were in similar areas, they could send out a volunteer, the same volunteer, to complete all of those missions in one go. So a lot of this is about efficiency, about organization, and in general humanitarian work. It was a very exciting project to be part of. It's completely open source, so we had teams, as I mentioned, from a lot of different places. And the MutualAid.world, which you heard Simon refer to it as Corona Donor, that was, I think, a preliminary name, so the name got changed to MutualAid.world. And this is a software suite with a couple different branches. As you'll see in the upper left corner, there was one called SafeTrace API, which is mostly a development team. They were working on a contact tracing API that would preserve people's data privacy, because this obviously would have to track where they go and a lot of personal information. There was another team working on a solution called Phone a Friend, and this was primarily to address mental health concerns. In other words, people could just call the number and they would have someone they could just have a conversation with, because a lot of us are very lonely when we're sitting at home all day. Feed Folks is kind of just a local organization delivering the food, so they're actually would be one of the users of the product. And Resilience App is kind of that product that Simon was talking about, so that is the project management arm, which was definitely the largest team, and this project helps the organizers manage their volunteers to help address the community needs. And I was also working on the Resilience App portion. As you can see here, there's just a few example screens from Resilience App. You can see it had this 3-part platform. We had the recipient side, which was the people who were in the community who were requesting a food box delivery or a pharmacy run was the idea. There's a volunteer side, so those were the people that were actually going and physically delivering the food. And the organizers, which is on a desk. The other two are on a mobile because it's more likely to be, I think we have someone in the waiting room. Just one second. Cool. Yeah, so the recipient and the volunteer sides were mobile because it's people in their everyday life. The volunteers would also be driving to deliver the food. While the organizer dashboard is on desktop because the organizers are working. They'll probably be accessing it with their other work documents. And as far as I know, most people don't work on a mobile phone, so we designed that one on a desktop primarily. A little bit more. A little bit more about the team. So we were obviously remote. We were across many different time zones. We had some people in Vietnam. We had some people in New Zealand, obviously US and Canada. We had some people from the Middle East joining us. So a lot of different time zones, a lot of different people to coordinate. But the part that I was the most impressed about was just how committed everyone was. People were very eager to participate and to do the work, especially towards the beginning. And we worked within a very professional seeming agile framework. So we had an Airtable board going, we had our own GitHub. We were using GitHub and also a Figma file so that the designers could all see each other's work. And I found that Figma worked really well for us in that way. People were very committed with Scrum. You do a daily stand-up, and so people were very committed to coming to that daily stand-up and reporting on how their day went, even if it was kind of a strange time of day for them. And during a survey we sent out sort of after what I'll describe as the quote-unquote failure, a lot of people were part of the project, probably like me. They were either like newer designers or in some way looking to build their portfolio, since a lot of us have heard that hiring managers really desire that real world experience. This would be a good chance for us to work on a team with a product that we were planning to ship, and that way we could put that story in our portfolio because it's more realistic. And of course we wanted to also be there to help people because it was a desperate time. And we want to do what we can to use our talents and our time to help our community. My role was primarily in that desktop organizer dashboard, so designing different interaction flows, communicating with developers, trying to figure out the best solution that was both feasible and also something that would make sense with the rest of the designs, and obviously something that would be usable for the nonprofit organizers themselves as well. Another thing I forgot to mention on the last slide, our team was very development heavy. A lot of the people who had started the project were developers, and they had that technical mindset. So that was one thing that I think was a challenge as a designer, because it could easily descend into a technology-centered design, or even agile-centered design rather than user-centered design. And since the goal is to help people, we want to build something that will be able to do that, and that the nonprofit organizers and volunteers will be able to use to help other people. A couple more specifics about the organizer dashboard. The idea was, it was a way for the nonprofit administrators to figure out how to deliver, or how to send out volunteers to deliver the food. As I mentioned, they could find which ones were close together and send the same volunteer to accomplish all of them at the same time. They also were able to keep track of payments, which was something that was a challenge before. Able to keep track of which missions had been started, which ones were in progress, which ones were complete, and if there had been any feedback from the recipients. And just in general, being able to keep things in one place was really helpful. That way they wouldn't have to manage a million different spreadsheets to find, vital payment information or customer information. Here's a sample screen from the organizer dashboard. This is from our development build, so it does not look exactly how our design looked. If you're visual designers out there, yeah, I know there's a lot of white space issues we need to fix. But I just screenshotted this from our development board, our development build. And as you can see, we have a Zillow style map on the right where you can see the different missions. They could click on one and they could group them together. This would be a mission that's already funded, but has not been started yet. So the idea here would be to figure out which volunteer to send out to accomplish this one. This is just a summary of the plan we had. We really built this custom for a certain organization in LA that sort of that feed folks, and then we moved towards one called Studio City Resilience. And Studio City we built it very specifically for them. So the idea was to kind of test this initial version on them. Oh, cute cat. And then to iterate on that and add secondary features. The problem with this idea was that we were developing at the same time as we were designing, and in a lot of ways, there'd be a lot of time and effort spent on code that wouldn't be usable, and that created some communication issues with our team, as I'll mention. Unfortunately, as I have described, that did not happen according to plan. I believe we started to release something, but then basically our client backed out and said that they ran into a legal issue where they couldn't use our app for payments, since there's some pretty specific laws around how nonprofits can handle payments. And in this case, we had a lot of different issues as well that were kind of building up besides that legal issue. For one thing, that client dropped out. We tried to switch, well, just the fact that we had Feed Folks first, and then we had Studio City, and they had slightly different needs. So we kind of tried to Frankenstein the project together to make it work for the second organization. I think in a lot of ways we were too specific with our product. It would have been better to go for something a little more general, although, yeah, we're not sure exactly how that would look. We would have to definitely spend more time in research. Development and design communication was not always the best. As I mentioned, we had this weird workflow where development was happening at the same time as design, and so oftentimes designs would get ignored, and development also, then that would be frustrating for them as well, because we design something and expect them to do it over, and they'd be like, but I already made it. And it was often, there was this pressure to get things out as fast as possible, because we really wanted to be agile. We really wanted to, yeah, I guess, fit into that quick time frame That way also we could help people faster, since the cases obviously were growing day by day. But in that case, we kind of sacrificed quality. So our end product, it really wasn't usable. It was really minimum viable, and probably not viable for someone who is not technically minded. So in a lot of ways it failed in the traditional sense, and it also didn't ship. But I think looking back, there are a lot of questions we should have asked that we didn't, and you can read through them, but I think that first one is probably the most important, and also the last one with the legal regulations. But the idea of like, are we building the right thing? We as a design team could have done a much better job with research and testing. I think with a lot of us being newer to the field, we were always like, oh, we need to spend so much time in research. And of course, developers and product owners were like, but we need to get this thing out. So we want to help people. And I think it would have been helpful to know more tools, as I'll mention in the next slide, that would allow us to quickly test and iterate on some ideas, so that we would know if we were building something that the user actually needed. And I think there was some misunderstandings among the designers and developers about the role of design as well, whether design was in charge of figuring out what to build or just how to build it, or how it's going to look, and like what UI patterns are going to be used versus figuring out the actual features. And with the second point, you can see we had a bunch of user stories. It was kind of nebulous where they were coming from. So I think we definitely just needed to be more user-centered and do more testing with our users to make sure that we weren't running into issues like we ended up after doing all the work. Like, that's what happened. So here's one solution. I know I've seen a lot of different opinions on design sprints on LinkedIn lately, but I think, so this was a project I ended up working on pretty much right after this whole situation happened with the Resilience App project, and I was like, shoot, I wish I had known this ahead of time, because it would have been perfect for our workflow. So if you haven't done a GV design sprint before, it's used by a lot of startups. It's a 5-day, really quick prototype and test flow. You can just build a really quick and dirty prototype. Sometimes it's just a facade to see if like people will respond to the idea you're testing. And you can test it out with some users and find out within a week if it is the right thing to build. And I think this would have fit really well with our workflow as a team, since we were so focused on being agile and getting things out quickly. We could have definitely used something that would allow design even to be just like 1 week ahead of development, so that way we can make sure things are usable and are built the right way, so that we didn't run into the frustration after we'd already built all the code of problems with our client or problems with design and development teams. So this is something I would definitely encourage you to check out. If you haven't had the chance, this is a really good tool to have in your toolbox in case you're working on a project where you're having little time to research, but you still need to make sure you're building the right thing. So a couple of lessons I learned from this project. There were a lot of lessons I learned. Learned a lot about agile methodologies and just working with developers in general, but I learned the importance of standing up for users' needs and for testing. Also for accessibility, making sure that our product is something that everyone can use. Oftentimes, as a newer designer, I'll let imposter syndrome get in the way of speaking my mind, and I think in this case, I didn't want to be the, how do I say this politely? The frustrating designer, or the entitled designer that always feels like they're right, and like they can always, they're always right and the developers are always wrong. And I think that fear often kept me from standing up for UX design at all. And sometimes just doing what I was told, because everyone, no one likes a smart ass, right? But I think, also like knowing the legal requirements, that was something I hadn't been run into before. So I think making sure when you're interviewing users or talking with users to also talk about the legal situations that you could run into, so that you don't build something and then find out later that it's not going to work because of legal restrictions or bureaucracy or whatever. And so this final slide is something to think about with this project. So we didn't ship. In a lot of ways, we had communication problems. But did we really fail? As I mentioned earlier, we sent out, so right after we kind of had this issue with the project, team morale was pretty low. And so our product owners sent out a survey to the rest of us. And one of the questions in the survey was, what were your goals for this project personally? And I felt a little bit guilty putting it down because obviously I also want to help people and I didn't want to be the only person who didn't put that as their number one goal. But I mean, I did want a portfolio project. That is important. And I think that was a lot of people's first goal was what we found out. And I think we got it. I think we got portfolio projects. This is a case study in my portfolio if you want to check it out. And I think a lot of us were just, and also for developers to build up their GitHub profile. I think a lot of us were looking primarily for experience, and we got experience, which was really great. And I think just even the idea that people from all over the world would come together to work on a project to help make people's lives better is a powerful reality, even if the product didn't actually make it out into the community. It shows that we can do something like this again, and when we come together. So I choose not to look at this project as a failure. It is an amazing learning experience. Definitely taught me things I could never have learned in class, and I'm sure taught a lot of us some important real lessons, and also the amazing community we can have digitally that we didn't take advantage of before COVID. So this is supposed to be breakout rooms again, but I would love to just circle back to that initial discussion we had about the quote unquote failed projects we had, whether it was the client saying I don't like it, or you know, technological issues, job interview didn't go well. And I'd love to hear some of your feedback when you're thinking back to that project you talked about. Just what are a few positive takeaways or lessons you learned that were valuable from that failed project?
You forgot the thanks deck. That's really good. Thank you, Sarah, for your deck. Great. And for me, I think we have a lot of questions to be answered before the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have 12 minutes. So sorry.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I've been looking at the clock like a little bit, but also before we go into Q&A, if we want to skip that discussion or just think about it, I wanted to share this quote with you. It's from Henry Ford, so obviously a brilliant inventor. Failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. So obviously failure gives us knowledge that we can use moving forward. So we not only don't make the same mistakes again, but we take the lessons we learn and build something even better. And here are some links for where you can find me. Thank you all for your time and attention. It was great sharing this with you. You can find my portfolio if you want to read more about this case study or any other ones. My LinkedIn, I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm also pretty active on Twitter, so I'd love to get in touch with you guys. So thank you all for your time today. And yeah, I would love to hear your questions. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the screen sharing. Oh, I'm sorry. I was not able to see the
You can read
the comments, but this is very interesting.
Yeah, you can read aloud if you want.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are just comments, but oh, okay. So if Sabian says, I think if workflow is awkward, then definitely the team could have used the daily scrum much better to coordinate their efforts. Sabian, do you have any suggestions for how that's worked, or like how your team has done a good job of that?
Not my team specifically, but I'm part of an agile group that is a bunch of project managers working together. And they mentioned that it's quite common for many businesses and projects to misunderstand what the daily scrum is actually for. And they...
Oh my God.
Uh-oh. You froze.
Yeah, he froze. You can keep.
Do you want me to like kind of?
Ask.
I can like talk to that point. I think some of the daily Scrum stuff is really like about like what you're working on. What are you blocked on, and do you need help from others? And then, yeah, those are the main things. So like, being aware of what everyone's working on, and then also getting the help and support from people to unblock you. But Sabian, do you want to continue? You froze for a second.
Yeah, I froze for like 10 seconds. I missed.
Welcome back.
So yeah, thank you. They were telling me that when, I don't know when it cut off actually, so I'm going to start from the beginning. And they were telling me that the daily scrums used by many companies were filled with, I won't say pointless mentionings, where they would go in with the same script over and over again every day with, this is what I did yesterday, this is what I'm doing today, this is what I'm going to do tomorrow. And by the end of the scrum, nobody really had anything useful or productive to say or to hear. And they were explaining how if people are working independently on different parts of the project, then they don't need a daily scrum. Yeah, Kari. And they said the point of the daily scrum is when people have tasks that are closely related to each other, like design and development, they would need to use the daily scrum to announce what they are doing so that the other person doesn't do something that conflicts with that or overrules it, anything like that. And it's more meant for coordinating the order of tasks and coordination of the team, not just to say what you've done. That's what I've heard from them.
Mm-hmm. I really like that. I think we definitely got too caught up in the kind of just going through the motions. So it's just like, what did I do in the last 24 hours? What am I doing next? And what are my blockers? And like most of the time it would be no blockers. And I know that that wasn't true. Like I had blockers almost every single day.
So like Sabian, I think that part of that is that I connected with is the strategy around strategic communication, of making sure that you're aligned and that you're moving in the right direction, and that a week from now you're not going to be held up because you've had the conversations the previous week to set yourself, both people up for a win. You know?
Yeah. It's like about questioning, is the process I'm following right now still useful? Is it actually helping me, someone else, or is it just something I'm doing because it's what we're supposed to do?
A good point.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was my take. Next up.
Yeah. Here we have more questions. Let me see. I think, yeah.
In terms of your questions, Leticia, wait, no, I'm looking at, I lost it.
Yeah, what's difficult to work with many people from
I think in a way it could be. I mean, in a lot of ways so there are a lot in Asia, and then a lot in like Asia and New Zealand, and then like US and Canada. Not as many in like Europe, Africa, like that region, I don't think. So we actually lined up pretty well because it would be the following morning for them and it would be afternoon for us. So it actually worked out pretty well in terms of the time zones. And I'd say there were about maybe 4 or 5 committed designers. Yeah, there are definitely like at least 2 or 3 others that were pretty consistent. Different levels of experience too, which is helpful. But I think, again, some of them, it depended on the person, but it was easy for, some of them were really good at coding, and so they also had a more technical mindset. So I think, even like within the design team, sometimes it could be challenging in that case. Sprint book. Awesome. Good resource. Thanks, Leticia.
I shared that book in I think I shared that book somewhere in LinkedIn once 4 months ago, and also in a Discord channel.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I think I remember seeing that now that you say that. Would it have helped to include developers in a design sprint? That is a great question. I think it depends. Obviously, we want to talk with developers as much as we can, but in a way, I feel like often we'd, sometimes it was easy for, I don't know how to say this without sounding like a jackass, but like the developers, I feel like there were just more of them, and I think they had more power. So I feel like we would have gotten steamrolled, but at the same time, yeah, I see where you're coming from, that it's always good to collaborate. And I think some of them had the view that designers weren't the ones in charge of designing what feature or making like what features would go into the product. It was more about how that would translate into like interaction flows. So I think there was a little bit of a breakdown there. That would have been
the moment you have a large amounts of features being built with no like vision or strategy from a design perspective, then developers will start to ask for your help, and it will be too late, and then you'll have to rebuild it and start it over. Like, so yeah, it's a very hard situation. I've been through it before, so I know that I've seen developers that were included in user testing before, and the increased amount of empathy they have for the user increased substantially because they were asking people, users, questions, and they were able to see things from a different perspective, and they did their job differently after going through that, and they asked better questions to the designers instead of just being focused on whatever task and not asking questions, but yeah, anyways.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah, especially at least the usability testing part, like understand, yeah, have them sit with us through usability testing sessions. They can understand, okay, like it's really hard when we see a product all day, we know how it works. Also, like as people who work in like technology, there's just a greater understanding of that. Whereas, yeah, people who work in nonprofit, I mean, you could get all over the map. You could get people that are really comfortable with technology, or you could get people who really hate technology. So I think that's definitely valuable. Yeah, we have quite a few questions. Wield a Viking UX axe. Great advice. That's awesome. What does the diva stand for, Sabian? I'm curious.
I think it's Madam.
That was in the context. You said you didn't want to seem like I don't know what the word is when I said diva.
Oh, smart ass. Yeah, diva. That's funny. So if I had the chance to change something or the time, oh my. Yeah, I feel like I would just, I mean, I don't want to say start over, but I feel like our product was not usable. I feel like maybe some of the basic ideas were fine, but as far as the actual implementation, or at least the front end, I think there definitely needed to be a lot more work on that. So I think doing, more usability testing would be a big one to figure out if people can find their way through the product all right, and if it's working for them. Yeah, let's do one more question since I know I want to respect your time. And definitely, like, if you guys want to drop your LinkedIn in the chat, it'd be great for us to all get in touch with each other as well. Maybe some of the coders didn't sleep. That's great. So what collaboration during the project went well and you wanted more of the same in other areas of the project? I think, oh yeah, could you?
So it's just like what conversations and collaborations that like were really great that you wish you would have had in another aspect of the project? Like,
Awesome. That's a great question. I think some of our, when it wasn't the whole group, sometimes when even like a designer, maybe a product owner, a few of us were I know we talked with the actual client just directly. And I think that was really helpful, learning what they were looking for. They ended up backing out. So that was when like the client switch snafu happened. But I think having more of those direct conversations with the client would have been really helpful. I think also afterwards, after we had this frustration and like this disappointment, we had a lot more honest conversations about what went well about our communication and our process and what didn't. And I think we were able to understand a lot more where each other were coming from. So I think if we'd had that conversation earlier, I know we were in a hurry because we wanted people to be able to use the product and help people in our community, but I think that would have been a valuable use of our time earlier, for sure.
One thing that we've done in the past in teams that I've been on is we have a retrospective, after, but we don't let one person run the retrospective. Everyone has to lead the retrospective, and they alternate. Like every person on the team, doesn't matter who you are, you're gonna run the retrospective one of the weeks or one of the every time, and that allows people to get more involved. It was very insightful, and the approach of the retrospective could change theme-wise and structure-wise depending on who ran it.
I really like that. I think that would have helped us a lot. Any other last-minute questions? Thank you all for coming out. This was such a pleasure to talk, and great to see some familiar faces and some new faces as well. But yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys in the Discord channel. And thank you, of course, Adam and Leticia, for all your hard work. I appreciate you guys so much.
Thank you. You are so nice person. So nice. Thank you. Thank you to be here, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah,
great presentation.
Really, really good connection with each one. I like this interaction, connection, and network. Really, really network. Thank you. Thank you to everyone. And I hope see you next week.
Hey, one second. I have 2 senior UX job leads that came in recently. One is remote. The other one that is with Amazon. It's through an external recruiter, but anyways, reach out to me. I'll post them in the Discord for people.
So the most important announce for the meeting. Okay. Yeah, that's good.
And maybe raise your hand or say if you're looking for work, just so that we have a visual of so we can reach out. So Whitmire, Andrew, Sarah. Okay. Cool. All right.
Yeah, Sardak also raised his hand.
Okay, cool.
Great. Awesome. Keep going with this job search, Sarah. And guys, see you. Take care, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. See you next week.
See ya.